Hi and welcome to this video in the QPS Insight series, Going Deeper. In this video we're going to look at just a real introduction to using CL script within QPS. Now it's a little bit limited what you can do, so I don't want to take this too far, but let's just take you through some of the things that you can do and indeed where you do that. You'll find the files for this video in video number 46. So let's start first of all by opening up a tables file and creating some tables. So let's just open up my tables and let's just insert 3 or 4 simple tables. So I'm going to pick here gender across the top, and for rows I'm just going to pick a couple of questions. Let's pick Q12, B and C and D. Alright, and let's run that. And sure enough, we're going to get 3 tables out there with those rating scales down the side and gender across the top. Let's look a little bit behind the scenes and see what's gone on here. What it's actually does QPS Insight is it creates an MRDCL script or a script file and it runs it for us. So this file that you may have seen called mytables.stp after you've opened up a file called mytables.qtf is actually a script file that QPS is running for you, and that could run perfectly easily in MRDCL, the scripting language. So let's have a little look at it and see what it does. Now I don't want to look at all this stuff at the top. There is a separate video that does this in much more depth. I want to take you to the bit at the bottom here where we look at the tables that are being produced, and if we look at this piece of code here, you'll see that what it's generating is start tables and some tables. Now some of that might look a bit unusual to you, some of these format options that are being set here, but this isn't really so difficult to understand. What this is saying that we've made table 1 as being Q12B by gender, table 2 as Q12C by gender, and table 3 as Q12D by gender. So it's putting a little bit of syntax around it. And indeed that's what underpins QPS, the scripting language that's available inside the program. And what QPS gives you is access to the scripting language, but in a little bit of a limited way. And by that I mean you can't, for those who understand MRDCL, you can't write data stages in QPS where you actually pick up data, variables or questions from the data. You can form new variables or recodes on variables or questions that you picked up in your QDF, but you can't actually go and physically pick up some data and say that gender, for example, is in data location 6, codes 1 and 2. That can't be done. That can be done in MRDCL when you have the full scripting license, and of course that offers you some real shortcuts if you've got something either complex or repetitive, because all that QPS is a subset, in fact, of all of the powerful tools that are available within MRDCL. But let's go on from there. You can specify tables, so I could have done those tables without actually typing this in. I could have done it a different way. I could have actually said I want to insert some script. Now you may have seen this when you click on tables, that on the insert table there's an option to choose CL syntax, and that stands for command language syntax. And I could type in my own syntax here. So I could just type in here table 4 is Q12B times region. And that would give me table 4 as being that table there, rather than doing it through the menu. So let's run it and see what happens. And actually nothing happens that's unusual. It looks exactly the same because, as I said just now, all that QPS is doing is generating script here and running it for us. So we get the table out by doing exactly the same thing directly in the script. Where script's not so good is that it's a bit more hostile with you, so that if, for example, you didn't know that needed a comma on the end of the line, you could run that and you would experience a screen looking like that. You'll get a QPS MR run failure, and you would get the log and you would get some help to tell you what's wrong. but it might not be enough to really help you, and you might spend a lot of time trying to find it. When you get a full MRDCL license, you get tools that point you to where the error is, say exactly what's wrong with it, and it's easier to correct and rerun. Another thing you'll find with this is that the table number here, I've chosen table number 4. Now, this could be a problem because it's worked as it stands here, but if I insert another table now, let's put in Q12E by gender. QPS doesn't know anything about this script that's been added in. It just is accepting there's some script there and really doesn't know what it's doing with it. So if I click OK on that, it's going to call that table number 4, even though this one here is called table number 4. And that could be problematic because MRDCL insists on QPS and MRDCL both insist on unique table numbers. And so when I run that, I get an error where I didn't expect one. And the message I get is something to do with referencing before a definition, and it might be a rather confusing error at that I wouldn't necessarily spot. And in fact, that comma has caused a problem. Let's run that again, and we'll still get an error because there's 2 table 4s now. And so the message I get now is that the table isn't the wrong size, which to an experienced user might mean something, but to somebody who's inexperienced, they might not know what to do with that and consequently be sitting looking at their error. So you have to be very careful. One trick that I use if I slot a table in using the scripting language, I put an X on it, and you can actually get rid of that X in the table number, put in F equals NAID in brackets, and that will also give it the table number X, but actually really have it known as 4X. So it's going to mean that the table is called 4X, which is obviously different from 4, and NAID actually means we'll hide the X in the table name, and now this will all work, and we'll actually have 2 table 4s. There's the one that's come in by region with the CL syntax, and here's the one that we've done through the QPS Insight menus. So a little bit of care is needed if you want to do any syntax, and you really have to get some experience if you're going to really push the syntax to any limits. But let's very quickly look at 1 or 2 examples. There is another video in the Real Productivity Gains series where you will see some really good ways that you can actually call snippets or add-ins that allow you to do quite complex things without having to necessarily understand too much script. But that's really for another session rather than this one here. But let's just take you through 1 or 2 more things that you can do that might be useful. So in here you can specify anything that's valid in the table's scripting language. Now we do have some videos in the MRDCL suite which takes you through some of the things you can do in the table stage, and that would be a good place to start learning how to use the scripting language to do tables. One thing that people often do if they want to put in some script is that rather than just insert CL syntax here and specify perhaps another table down here, so let's go in, insert CL syntax, it's remembered the previous piece of syntax, so we might want to do question 12C in here. You can see you're only allowed 1 line of code. So what people often do is say they want to insert my script in here, and then they put the script they want in a file called myscript.stp. So what I can do is insert my script in here, and so all it's going to do is call a file called myscript.stp, and then in here I can make a file called myscript.stp, and I can edit that using Notepad or any other editor that I care to use. I'm using Vi here, and I could say that table 5x is Q12D times region, missed up $1 there by mistake, and I might want to add another table which is Q12E, just $1 there, so let's just Now see what happens. Let's just run this. And sure enough, I get my extra two tables, 5x and 6x, which is Q12D by region. And you get some real advantages in here. So if we go back to our original questionnaire, we've got Q12A to Q12G here. So we could, for example, in my script, and this is where you start to see the power of scripting, we could do something like this. We could add on the bottom here, star do a 1 to 7, and in here we could do a loop of 7 tables, which did Q12A by Q12 region. Oops, got that wrong. And that would be a shorthand way of giving me 7 tables called tables 7 to 13, because A has a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it will give me Q12A, Q12B, Q12C, should be an asterisk, by region. And if I run that now, and sure enough, down the end here now, tables, we go 7, 8, and 9. We've got all of the bits of Q12, all by region, just within a couple of lines of code. And that's where script can really help you. So let's insert another piece of script now. I'm going to call it my script 2. There it is. We've got to make my script 2 again. And this is where you can start to see where using CL really does save a lot of time, but you do need the knowledge. So let's say we wanted a top 2 box, which is a fairly laborious thing to do in Insight. So we want a top 2 box. I'm going to call it VQ12A to G is Q12A to G, and I'm going to pick up 1.2, and then I'm just going to pick up the variable as it stands. Now that obviously requires a real knowledge of the scripting language, which you can get from the MRDCL help videos that show you how to do these sorts of things. But it's not easy, and it does take some practice to get good at this. But it does mean now, let's do these tables as A plus 20 equals $VQ12 tilde A. And let's do these by gender. And so what I've done now is specify 7 tables. Imagine that was a rating scale of 20 items. That would be a laborious process in QPS Insight. Whereas here I can just write a loop and pick up a top 2 box for each of those. But of course it needs quite a bit of knowledge to be able to do that. So let's just see whether that works. We run again, and it has worked. And if we go down to table 21 to 27, we should find down here somewhere at the end of this run, here it is, I've now got a top 2 box for this one, and a top 2 box here. So we've got 82 in the top 2, 8 and 74, 545 here, which is the sum of those two. And we could have done a bottom 2 box as well. But of course all this needs quite a bit more knowledge, and it really is a real step up. And really, if you're going to get serious at writing MRDCL script like this, you're probably advised to buy an MRDCL license, and then you get all of the tools and all of the compilation features and all the shortcuts that are available that will make you much more productive. I see this as just a way of perhaps solving a problem that you have, or perhaps us writing a little bit of code for you that does something that saves you a lot of time or is beyond the capabilities of QPS MR Insight. But it really does open the tool up to go on to further things. But if you're really going to push it and want to make the most of this scripting language, you really have got to get an MRDCL license, and then you really can become highly productive. Well, thanks for listening. I hope that video was helpful to you, but it's introduced you to how you can use script in QPS MR Insight.